I like this idea that we come empty-handed and we go empty-handed. It's like two moments of nothingness that we're living in between. Nothing is mine when I'm here, and nothing is mine when I leave. And so, can I live maybe a little more in a way where I'm offering more of myself to the planet while I'm here?
Welcome to episode 23 of The Future is Beautiful. We have moved our Patreon-a-thon to September 11th, so I hope you can all join us then. In the meantime, if you'd like to support us in making this podcast and stay advertising free, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co/community and make a monthly donation. We currently have 10% of our costs coming in, and it's rising every week, so thank you. We wish to become fully supported by you, our wonderful listeners. So whatever you have to give makes a difference. My Presence Mentoring Program is open for applications to start in August, a 6-month one-to-one leadership journey. Information about this and the Patreon-a-thon can be found on the events page at the Future is Beautiful website. Right, my guest this week is Nimo Patel, who went from an Ivy League education to Wall Street to fame and fortune as an MTV rap star. At some point along his journey, he realised he was walking a path of suffering and that the only path to light was through selfless service to others and his own internal purification. For the best part of this decade, Nimo has been serving and working with the underprivileged communities in the Gandhi Ashram in India. Most recently, he's reconnected to his roots of music and is offering this gift of love, peace and oneness through his songs, an offering he calls Empty Hands Music. Nimo has just released a new song, We Shall Overcome, Love Will Rise Again, a dedication to the movement to overcome suffering and violence through a heart-based revolution for all beings that breathe on this planet. We share a little bit of this song at the start of the interview. I met Nimo through the time that I have spent over the years with the beautiful community at Gandhi Ashram. During this conversation, we discuss what the true meaning of service is, what we can learn from kids, and how meditation and music can help us connect to ourselves and each other. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to The Future is Beautiful, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between politics, spirituality, creativity, and sustainability. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a brighter future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community or the pressures that we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to dream, to ask ourselves the big questions and to share what we are already doing, we create the future that we wish to wake up for. That future is beautiful.
Burning inside, the hurting and the suffering, minds creating anger, fear and pain, suffocating our times. The tougher it gets, the rougher social media cries. But we see to it that we tweeting only negative lines. We're sick and tired of history, but repeating it twice. Greed, anger and violence, clearly stealing our nights. Feeling it tight between the shoulders with a chill in the spine. Pinching myself, waking up, trying to stop the rewind and move forward towards stories, overcoming our fears. Choosing love over hate, praying, trading hugs over tears. There's only one choice, breaking down the walls and repair every broken heart on this planet till there's no longer fear.
Walls can't hold us in. Fear can't keep us down. Love will rise again. Yeah, it's rising right now. We shall overcome.
Every time I think it's gonna take much longer.
This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Nimesh Patel, otherwise known as Nimo. We're here in Ahmedabad, and we have the windows closed, but you can hear the beautiful soundtrack of the cars and the honking and the birds and the kids.
This is the motherland.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And Nimo is a musician and works with kids here in Ahmedabad. Can you start just by sharing a little bit about your journey to how you ended up here?
Well, thank you, Amisha, for your warm welcome. And Yes, it is wonderful to be in this country and so much warmth surrounding us. Yeah, I ended up here, well, who knows, all the different things that lead to it, but you know, I grew up in Los Angeles, and my mom and dad immigrated to America in the 60s. And I think growing up in high school, I always had this vision. I always was passionate about the arts. But then I also had like a business and academic side to me, so I always was thinking like I wanted to do like mixed business and entertainment. That's kind of what led me to going to business school on the East Coast, and then ended up working in New York for a couple years, and at the same time I was doing a lot of media, music, entertainment related projects parallel to that. And
you were on Wall Street? Yeah,
I was working in New York City in the financial services industry, and quite not what I was envisioning, but for me initially I wanted to just get some corporate experience, kind of justify the education and for a moment, but also to get that kind of understanding of how do major corporations work. And but it was in the midst of that actually that I got a phone call from a junior high school friend, Mona, who was like, Nimo, you have to check out this musical. And it's called Ikta, which means unity. And the show was being played in New Jersey. It was a performing arts kind of dance and drama. And I was like, okay. Like I didn't know why she was so passionate about it, but she was telling me that I gotta go see it. So it was a few weeks later, and then I ended up, going with a friend. We took a train out to New Jersey, and Amisha, it was amazing. It was 14 children from the slums around my home that I now live in here. But this was 16 years ago.
And we're here in Ahmedabad.
We're in Ahmedabad,
Gujarat, in India.
In India, yes. And Ahmedabad is one of the biggest city of the state of Gujarat, also the city where Mahatma Gandhi created an ashram here after moving back from South Africa. So a very kind of sacred spot in India's timeline as well.
And actually where my mother was born, so it really is the motherland.
Yeah, wow, yes. Yeah, my parents were born in this state as well. So seeing a show at that time, I had never really integrated myself into this community or this state as much. When I was young, I visited, but it was as a tourist. It was as visiting family, but not really understanding the culture, I think, as deeply, or understanding the plight of our country as much. But seeing these kids represent the story of struggle, of love, of nonviolence, of truth, of equality, of unity on stage, children that come from very tough backgrounds. While I was living a very posh life in New York and enjoying it, I don't feel guilty about it. It was really wonderful. But then for that to be contrasted right away in a moment's time without any expectation by these children and the visuals that they created and the message that they shared, I was deeply moved. And I remember leaving that space saying, where am I? How did 14 children from the slums of India, which I've never been to one, come here in front of us and just share this amazing piece of art? And so I always like to use the word seed, but a deep seed was planted in me. And as I went back, it, just as anything emotional you feel, it resides and it eventually dissipates at some point or another. And we're living also in the post 9/11 space. So 9/11 happened right in front of our eyes. There was a lot of heart buildup over those past. It was March of 2012 that this show happened. So almost eight months or so after 9/11, and we were all deeply, obviously, impacted in our hearts and integrated through the city. So I think that also pushed even more. And I was already planning on leaving the corporate world because I realized, I think, especially after 9/11, that the question aroused, like, what am I really doing with this life that I've been given? In front of me, I saw many people jump off the Trade Center and die right in front of my eyes, you know? And all the tragedy that happened there, of course it's constantly happening, but when it happens in front of you, there's, I think, deeper shifts that happen. So all these things were coming up, and eventually, I think in June of that year, I finally kind of decided that it was time to leave this kind of space. It was wonderful. It was a great learning experience, and living in New York was amazing, but this was not my calling. And so I ended up choosing to move back to Los Angeles to pursue my music career. And that was also a wonderful experience. But then something actually a few years later started building up in my health that became a challenge, actually. And I started getting a lot of hand pains going all the way up to my neck. And it wasn't anything that any of the doctors, neurologists, orthopedic, anybody could help. So it led me to going back to India for Ayurvedic kind of consultancy. And that was the first moment when I came back. I decided I'd come back for a few months, like to stop everything I was doing with music. I had a media company. My friends and I started a comic strip. So this was kind of like my work, and I decided to cut it off because this had been going on for like 3 years, the health situation. My dad had actually suggested, why don't you go meet some Ayurvedic doctors and see if they can help. It was getting to a point where I couldn't even like write without it paining. I couldn't hold a plastic bag, you know, certain things that you take for granted, and then as things developed, then, so I was really like, I have to do something about it. I even stopped drinking at some point. Like, I think I started, there was a 5-year span where I drank alcohol socially. And this was also another commitment that I made. I'm like, if my health isn't going to get better, like I need to feed it proper nutrition and sustenance. And so I decided to stop drinking socially as well. Even during that phase, I went vegetarian, but that was more, I think, for my love for animals. And then I eventually came here and met a doctor. And during that time, I decided to volunteer at Manav Sadhana, which is the nonprofit here in the Gandhi Ashram that had taken those kids on tour in 2002. So here I am 5 years later now volunteering at this nonprofit because of these seeds that were planted while I was in New York. And then, so that's how I ended up here. That was a long answer. Amisha can breathe now. Sorry, it is a long story, so I was like trying to connect the dots here. But that's how I first connected, which is about 10 years ago, to this space that I've been living in. And I volunteered creating a music album for six kids called Let Them Sing. And we worked together. Yeah.
And when you first came, it was very much around, like, it was around you wanting to actually learn from the kids, right? And like be absorbed in their world rather than like, okay, I'm just gonna come and we're gonna make a show and da-da-da. It was like, okay, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna, you made a lot of big decisions, giving up all your belongings, choosing a more simple way of being. Can you share a little bit about that?
So that first time I came was for 6 months. And then I went back to America, and then a couple of friends and I, we had a media company. We got actually good funding from a venture capital company. So I moved to Pune. I was running the company, and then in the middle of that, I decided to close it down, and my heart was calling back to serve. And so that's when I really let go of everything. So when I left my animation studio and my music group, closed everything down, and there was a calling to start a new chapter in my life. And I was looking at it as chapter 1 was complete, and it was one of the most amazing chapters I could have imagined or dreamt of, from birth to that point, in all ways. But it was meant to also finish. And chapter 2.
If you can summarize chapter 1, what would you say like were a few words that were chapter 1?
Chapter 1 of life, if I look back, I just feel a lot of joy. I feel like the freedom of a child, the way they should have it, that capacity to express and enjoy and live, yet learn with discipline. Like, it was just a balance of so many beautiful things: friendship and playfulness and sports and academics. For me, it was just so much diversity in all ways, from cultures and friends to activities and habits and family. And so, yeah, I just felt like it was really well balanced, and I feel like that's what all of our children deserve to have.
But for you, chapter 1 was a lot about success, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was thinking about childhood. For me, the childhood was the success, yes. Yeah, I think if I look at after post-elementary school, it was successful, and it could have been gone in that direction of material success if I had wanted it to, if that was something that was driving inside. But it was a space where it allowed me to achieve what I thought was what I wanted to achieve, and then realize also that that's not what I wanted. It didn't make me happy, and so to let go of that was the letting go of chapter 1, closing of chapter 1, and I feel so blessed to have had that kind of awakening in some way or another. Maybe the health, I think, thing that I went through with my health, I'm sure that had a big role. Things like 9/11, all those spaces, relationships, things where suffering was created in different ways, really, I think, made me keep questioning, how am I using my life? And there's got to be a better way to live day to day, than what I was doing. So yeah, so that was closed. And then when I left Pune, it was trying to start chapter 2. So you were saying, like, that transition was where I wanted it to be, had to be different. And the first thought for me was the material stuff, was how do I cleanse materially? And I think it wasn't a big deal, but physically for me it was important, I think, and internally, like, just to get rid of everything I had. And I kept a few things, like my laptop and my savings, because that was what was going to let me serve. And but just like giving away, like, okay, my favorite watch, or all my expensive material things, or my CD collection of like 1,500 albums that I'd collected over the last 10 years, or all my DVDs, my huge DVD collection. Small things, but at the same time,
nobody has CDs or DVDs
Yeah,
anymore.
I know. I used to collect so many. I can't believe it. Yeah, so my MP3 collection. But those things that you create emotional attachment with, and letting go of that was also a beautiful process.
Yeah.
And then I remember, after reading Gandhiji's autobiography, one of the things I did for the next 3 years after I left that and started my life here was try to figure out what my relationship with money was. And I knew that if I wanted to serve, that I would have to be living in a simple manner, whatever that meant for me, and simplicity for me doesn't mean like you live with one robe or anything. It just means the mental connection with material things. And so one thing that I did for 3 years every day was record every rupee or dollar I spent on what. And then every month I would actually categorize it in different categories and try to understand what my spending patterns were for 3 years straight. Until I got to a space where I felt so comfortable with the fact that I don't misuse money. I kept doing it just to understand and keep seeing where was I using my money. And that was a great experiment for me, because after those 3 years, I felt very comfortable that I'm happy the way I'm living, and I don't need anything anymore. I don't need to purchase anything. And whatever I do purchase, it's fine also. But I have that faith in myself now where it's like, that's out of the equation. That worry about like financially needing so much, or that vision that I used to have that I want this, I want this, I want that. Everything kind of got flushed out, which was a great cleanse.
And it's a nice way of discovering what your values are when you see, like, okay, like, I always manage to find money for this thing, or for the, or I always end up buying that. Like, then okay, this means something to me. And then when you see it on paper, you can decide kind of from a more rational place if you want that to mean as much to you as it actually does in your everyday life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that was helpful. It was a helpful experiment, and I think that beginning phase was a journey of experiments, because Gandhiji's book, it's the story of my experiments with truth. It's very inspiring because it was like to change ourselves, rewire ourselves from old habit patterns. You don't just pray and have a surgery done. I mean, you really got to work at it. And I think for me, that idea of experiments. Okay, what are the experiments that are going to help me shift this habit pattern, or this value that is less in me that I want to develop or cultivate more of? So I think the journey was less about serving, but serving becomes a vehicle where your ego is not as, the ego is there, but then you start observing it more when you're actually serving for others, trying to help others. And then that process of like constantly looking within during that journey of service was and has been and will be, I think, the rest of the journey, and to keep working on it.
What does it really mean to serve? I feel like there's a kind of Gandhi concept of what that means. Maybe,
yeah. And sometimes, the word, I feel like serve is still an ego-based word, but to use it to communicate to others, I guess we're still doing it, or I'm still doing it. But I almost feel like to help, to try to be of service, to see where in society we can support or alleviate suffering and be a part of that kind of effort to do that, or add to society, add some, positive seeds. But at some point, I feel like to not have to use that word would be good, and just to be. And if our being is in service, then I think that, for me, that would be an ideal path. Mm-hmm. But then it just goes back to cultivating the spirit of selflessness, and that's a lifelong journey. So I think, to me, service is to be of service to what is needed, or what you may feel may be needed. But again, we're doing it for ourselves, so you're serving yourself in that same very moment.
And it's finding something that's relevant, that moves your heart, right? Finding something that hurts you when you see it in the world. So you're like, okay, I want to, this hurts me, and I want to contribute towards this in some way.
Yeah. It's both. It hurts maybe, and it also brings a lot of joy to be a part of that. Or what were you saying?
Well, I was at Wednesday night meditation last night.
Oh, good.
Here. So there are these awakened circles that started 20 years ago in California, and they've been going on for 10 years here in Ahmedabad, and it's a really beautiful community. People come together, and just sharing for our listeners that don't know, haven't yet been to one.
Yeah, you could go to awakin, awakin.org, and sign up if city near you.
Totally, and they're all over the world. And actually the reading last night was around what breaks your heart, and it was about how whatever it is that breaks your heart is showing you like where you can be of service. Like if that thing is touching you and moving you, then you can use that to contribute to serve in some way. And I found beautiful. A really beautiful way of looking at it. And it doesn't have to be something where, like in your case, you end up moving countries and devoting your whole life. Like it could be something where there's something just in your local community, wherever you are, like something you can do.
Absolutely, yeah. I love this little phrase of serve locally but love globally. That where can we be of service with whatever we have, wherever we're planted, but at the same time, can we still hold all of humanity in our hearts? So it doesn't have to be something that we project to be very big, like you're saying. And I think that's very important, actually, that Mother Teresa's quote also so inspiring, this idea that we can do no great things, but we can do small things with great love. And I think that's so key. I feel like we learned so much of that here from the Manav Sadhana community, this like idea of going in depth instead of going broad. And sometimes when you go in depth, actually it does go broad and it becomes big, but that was never the intention. It just happens naturally, which is kind of very sustainable, I think, when you're in a space of trying to serve or help. So yeah.
So when you got here and you started to form this project with these 16 kids and their families, can you share a little bit about what you came to learn about them and what they were able to show you?
Yeah, they showed me a lot about life. It was a experiment to kind of be inspired by that show that I had seen in 2002 to then create another kind of musical, because I love performing arts and I love children, and I was like, wow, this would be a great way for me to try to connect and with this community and be of service. And so we went through a process, almost like 9 months, to select 16 kids out of the thousands of kids, obviously, that we work with in the various slum communities. And then as we then began our journey together, it was really a day-to-day kind of journey over a period of a year and a half, 2 years. And this, in the beginning, even before we had selected the kids, when we were in the audition process, I met with all the parents. And that was one of the learnings, I think, that everyone was sharing with me, that make sure you have good relationships with the parents. And a lot of people were warning me that you would, even if you pick 16, you'll probably lose 4 or 5 of them throughout the year. And I was like, wow, so maybe I should pick 20, or like what, like, why is that? Why are you gonna lose? They're like, oh, well, some will like just give up, others, parents will take them out. But it was nice to get this feedback, because it made me realize the importance of like developing relationships with the parents. I didn't realize that coming into it. And so, yeah, I would say within like 3 to 6 months, like was really close. Still am actually close with all the parents. This is even like 6 years later, but we became family. I would go to all the homes as organically, 16 kids, so it's not like so easy all the time, but every day I'd probably be at one of the kids' homes, and we'd have parent meetings every few weeks or so they would all take the time out to come to the ashram. So we're in a space of developing a family versus creating a project. It was really that journey, and in that journey everything comes up: health, education, personal drama, joys and issues between the kids, sometimes between the parents, financial situation. So it was really us trying to just work with each other and learn and grow as to what our challenges are, what's the beauty here that we have the potential to tap as a collective family, and to remind ourselves that, this is just, it's not like some big project, it's just a journey to go on, and we'll see where it ends up. So we never started this journey with this idea in the parents or kids' minds that we were going to tour the world. Actually, it came much later in the journey. It was just a show that we were going to create, that we would perform in front of people and share this inspiration. So in that sense, it was very pure, that it just kind of organically kind of flowed wherever it needed to. The children taught me, I think, 2 of the most important lessons, which was kindness and gratitude. And I see that in the families as well. Kindness, because it's small things, but like one time we had a lunch at Manav Sadhana, and I wanted it. My favorite Indian dish is called paneer butter masala, and I wanted to cook it for all our kids. So one Sunday afternoon, we said we'll all meet there after practice and we'll cook a big dish. So it's like literally like 40, 50 tomatoes worth of that much, for like 20. And by the end, everything was ready, and then at the end I was just going to add a little sugar, so it was all like good. So I got the sugar out of the container at Manav Sadhana, in the Gandhi Ashram, and I put it in and started mixing it, and I tasted it, and it tasted a little sour. So then I was like, oh, let me add a little more sugar. Maybe that'll kind of like, so I added a little more sugar, a little mixing it up, and then it felt like it was more sour. So then I added a little like milk and some cream, and then before you know it, just kept on getting more and more sour. I was like, what's going on? And before you know it, somebody figured it out that those were lemon seeds that look exactly like sugar crystals. So all I was doing was all I kept on doing was adding these, like, they're called limbu no ful, with like little like lemon seed kind of thing. Super sour. Anyways, we tried to make the best out of it. It was a horrible dish. And as we sat down to eat, everyone just eating it, because that was a lot of food. We couldn't waste it. So we all just kind of ate it. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And the first response from the kids, they're like, no, Nimesh sir, it's very good. It's very good. But like, it wasn't even like an acting thing. It was just like, we want him to feel good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's going to just keep feeling bad. And that genuine kind of like response to me, those type of things really constantly impacted me working with them, you know? So for me, they're my teachers, and there's this one story I'll share that, again, teachers of kindness and gratitude, I think two most important messages for me. There was one time where Vishal, Vicky, Dharmaji, and Asha's homes got demolished because the government was building this riverfront project, which has now been built. This was in 2011. And the next morning, or that night, I got all these missed calls by Vishal's father. I didn't know why, and I called him in the morning, and he said, our homes were just demolished. We didn't have any warning. And I said, I'll be there in 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. So I went to the grocery store, picked up our kids who were living at the ashram, and we went there, and it was just flattened. These are homes that we've spent so much time in. Couldn't visualize it, and it was just utter chaos. And the first thing when we walk in and try to find where their home used to be and where they are in this chaos, they are smiling, they hug me, and the first thing they say is, come. What do you want to drink? We'll get you something. Coffee, chai, cold drink. These were their first words in the midst of their homes being demolished, and they had nothing. No utensils, just rubble. And for them to say those words was really, really kind of reminded me that I don't know if I can have really much to ever complain about in my life if they have this capacity during the darkest moment in their lives, you know? So these are a few important things I think that they've taught me.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that most of us could never even imagine, that one, we would lose our homes, and two, that there would be no warning or no insurance or anything. And yeah, to have that level of grace.
Absolutely. Yeah, so constantly, and our kids are constantly teaching us. I mean, those are 16 kids that I got to closely work with, but I think children in general are quite amazing teachers. I like the Gandhiji's quote. He says, the law of love can best be learned and understood through little children. It's the sense that, for me, children, animals, trees, these are like these pure beings. So even when they emanate negative things, sometimes it's still coming from a pure space. So it's everything that they offer is something to learn, you know, receive.
And I want to come back to kindness and gratitude and your music, but I guess I'm curious, in this space and in this work and in the teachings of Gandhiji, it's so focused on like being kind and non-violent and loving. Where's the space for somebody's own kind of inner darkness or their kind of own journey with like anger, for example, with shame, with some of these other emotions?
That's a great question. In my experiences, I think the two things that are helpful from to help give room and space for darker parts of our lives are, I think, like noble friends. To me, it's so important to have, and having constant spaces where you can dialogue. So I think the goodness in things that you're talking about are good anchors. It's good to have that anchor. I think we need to walk the path from darkness to light. And we're all in a space of darkness at some point or another. But I think to have spaces where you can actually share, and I think that's why in communities that I've been a part of, at least the circles have been so powerful. And like, for example, and this wasn't based here, but in Israel, we were just having a gathering between Palestinians and Jews. This was last June. And it's part of a Sulha peace project. It's a project geared towards bringing dialogue. But I see this whole idea of circles and this whole idea of space of expression, how powerful that is to offer our vulnerabilities if it's a safe space that's created. And when you have a non-judgmental space, to me, nonviolence, the crux of that is non-judgment. And I think the moment you're able to create a space like that, then vulnerability actually is able to come out. It's when we're not being authentic and real that everything is all good, like I'm perfect, or it should only be like, it's beautiful, like things are so, and we're hiding from, I think, the authentic feelings of just being both dark and light and good and bad. And our ego many times wants to project, so I think that's what also creates walls for people to be very authentic. But I think if we can lead by just being authentic, and that comes with, I think, the desire to really come from a pure space, and we got to work on that. It's not easy, because we want to project an image of whatever our ego wants to project, but to show weakness, and I think that's part of it. I think, it would be such a great question to talk to Gandhiji about.
Do you think we can call him?
Yeah. No, we got some like direct lines.
Cool.
No, because
come up in the next episode.
Because it's so. I wonder how he treated that idea. Because you're trying to build a nation off of like warriors, but warriors of truth. So then, are you willing to, And he seemed, from all of our understanding, such a humble spirit, willing to let go of his life. So why would he care about letting an ego come in the way as well, And I think that spirit there is that humility, that authenticity. I think those are values that allow for. So if we're truly practicing, we would be actually practicing those values. So I think the inner work is so important because it leads us there. Otherwise, we can easily kind of fly away.
And I guess like what you're saying, the kids, they have anger, they cry, they get upset about stuff.
Authentic.
But it's authentic, and it comes from purity. It's not like blame. It's just expressing and releasing the emotions, because there's a lot in life that isn't perfect. There's a lot in life where there's a lot of darkness in the world that we live in.
Yep. Maybe that's why Gandhiji said the law of love can be understood by them, because they are real in all those ways and not just giving you the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things that makes hanging out with kids so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so real. And often when we're hanging out with adults, we are hanging out with their mask or their projection, whatever it is that they want you to see in that moment.
Yeah.
And there's not that many people that will just meet you exactly where they are in that moment.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
And whilst you were here, you got back into your music, and you kind of quickly mentioned your music career earlier, but it was like a little bit of a big deal at a certain point, right? You were doing pretty well with one of your groups.
Yeah, we had a hip hop group. It was the first Indian hip hop group, and that's why I think we got a lot of notoriety or a lot of support. Even MTV at that time was starting a new channel for Indian Americans, so they used us as kind of like a poster group type of thing. But overall, it was just amazing to be a part of that, you know, that movement of that diaspora of our parents moving in the 60s, and we were the first generation to be able to actually express this immigrant journey. Because we grew up as Americans, we meaning all hundreds of thousands of us Indians in America at that time grew up in the 70s or 80s or 90s, and for the first time in the mid-late 90s, Indian Americans started expressing this kind of journey that they went through. And we happened to be there at that time, but as hip-hop artists, and so we got to express it in one way, and people were expressing it through film and through art and dance. So it was really a beautiful journey. We were like four best friends getting to tour around everywhere and perform, and yet we're just like normal dudes, so we just enjoyed each other's company, and whoever was hosting us or promoting, we enjoyed their company. Like it was just like friendships all over everywhere, you know? And so in a way, sometimes we get intellectual about it and say, okay, how are we gonna blow up? How are we gonna like do this and do that? But ultimately we just like, we really enjoyed the journey, I think. And that the creative process, as well as the industry process. I think at the end there was a lot of negative things that happened, like contractual and legal, financial stuff that we didn't enjoy. But I don't know, I guess I always try to like look at the positive of it, and I was just like, wow, that was an awesome experience. But then at that point where I was sharing where my health, and then when I moved to India, it was also a point where I was just like, I'm kind of happy to be done with all this too. Yeah, like it was an awesome journey. I was so happy. And I still look back and I feel so blessed to have been a part of that journey. Just yesterday, last night I was in Mumbai. Well, last few days I've been in Mumbai, but last night I was spending time with two guys, Vinith and MDB. And they're a couple of the pioneers of the hip hop movement in India from 10 years ago. So they started, I think, in 2007. And we started 10 years before, but in America. But it was awesome because it was, for me, hearing their journey feels like reminding me of a journey 20 years ago, because now they're trying to bring hip hop into India, and they're part of a group called Slum Gods. And they're coming tomorrow actually to serve with our children here. But they're trying to live this life of bringing hip hop into the communities, and they're serving the kids in the Dharavi slum communities and trying to really give them access and a platform to express themselves through hip hop. But it was just so exciting and inspiring to see this new energy of MCs and graffiti artists and breakdancing artists and DJs or producers like rebuild the culture. But it reminds me of that. It was just happy times.
And then when you put the music down, and when you were here working with the kids, you just found like unexpectedly music was coming back.
Yeah, I was done. I was really done. I didn't have any expectation to connect back to music from an artistic standpoint. It was weird. I guess I just put it in that category that, that was done. Next phase of life. A friend of mine, Daniel, who's now a friend, but I met him through a bunch of synchronicities. But his music album was the first English written music album that I really started listening to in India. Otherwise, I've just been listening to Sufi music when I moved out here. And my friend Nipun and Guri, they gifted me this album. It's called Water. And it was they were dropping me off to the airport in San Francisco. And they're like, you gotta listen to this. And so I listened to it, but then I ended up listening to it for another 2 years in a row, constantly.
What's his name? Daniel?
Daniel Namo. And one of the most amazing albums I've ever listened to. And that just kind of soaked into me that, wow, like this music is offering me something very deep and is giving me life, you know? As I was trying to walk this journey with my kids, it was telling me the words and that I wanted to practice, you know? So that was a lot of seeds planted, but Daniel's song, Planting Seeds, which is more of an American folk song, he's like a folk contemporary spiritual singer. Mm-hmm. So his song, Planting Seeds, was an anthem for me. This idea that we offer ourselves, but it's not ours to own, you know? We keep planting our seeds. So something, I think, after the tour was over with the kids in 2012, I decided that I didn't want to do anything right now. It had been a lot of doing for the last 2 years, and then the rest, all my life, actually. The first time in my life, I decided to take a break and just help out in small ways, serve, but not with a project in mind. And I let that go on as an experiment to see if my ego was kind of attached to anything that I had to show that I was doing something. But no, I'm glad I made it through for about a year. But I was still questioning myself, like, what am I doing? No, that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. But in the middle of that, about a year after I started that experiment, this itch to write music came again. And I remember I was in Chennai. I was, Cochin. I went to drop my friend's grandmother's ashes, pick up her ashes. And then I was at a cafe coffee day in Cochin one night, and MTV was on. And they had hip hop music on. And I was like, this feels good. I'm like, I feel like writing, like I got the bug or something. Mm-hmm. A month later, I went to America and I asked Dan. By then, Daniel and I were good friends. And I asked Daniel if I can do like a remix version, a hip hop version of his original folk track, Planting Seeds. He's like, dude, yeah, I've never tried a hip hop thing, but let's do it. So then we're in the studio and we're just like creating a beat for it. And then the next few days, I write my parts to it, and then we record it. And then I was like, wow, this is exciting, writing music? I never thought I'd write music again. And then for me, then I think I got the bug, and it was feeling very natural to want to write more. And it led to a series of like writing songs over the next 3-4 months that ended up becoming this album called Empty Hands. And it was awesome because it all happened very organically. I didn't really have a vision that there would be an album coming together. And in the same way, then music videos started following. And that happened very naturally with amazing friends that just started volunteering. And I especially want to highlight my sister Ellie Walton, because she's basically helped me make all my Empty Hands music videos. And she is just an amazing, soulful filmmaker. Her heart is just rooted deeply in whatever she's shooting. And she just happened to be living here in this apartment complex that we're sitting in right now, because she was on a Fulbright scholarship during the exact moment that I was looking for like a filmmaker to help me create a music video. So it was just really beautiful how synchronicity kind of just did its own thing, and we were just kind of here being a part of it.
And why Empty Hands?
I like this idea that we come empty-handed and we go empty-handed. This is like, I feel like it's a universal truth, no matter who we are. So it's like 2 moments of nothingness that we're living in between. And it makes me think. It makes me feel like, what am I doing with those moments? It's nothing is mine when I'm here, and nothing is mine when I leave. And so can I live maybe a little more in a way where I'm offering more of myself to the planet while I'm here? Because I'm going to be fully offered physically when I'm gone. So yeah, I don't know, it brings this feeling inside me that how are we using our moments while we're here?
And there's also this thing of, you know, what we do with our hands, like that's how we
That's how we offer ourselves to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a symbolic, way that we look at it. And empty, it's like when you put your hands out like this, you can't see it on the podcast, but it's a way you can be offering, you can be receiving, you can be praying, you can be looking.
So we've got our hands, little fingers and palms together, facing up, palms facing up.
Yeah,
you want
yeah.
to join us?
Wow, thank you. I just got everyone's blessings and I'm throwing it in the air.
And the album, it touches on all of these themes and kindness, of gratitude, of your relationship to the feminine, and it carries this pureness and this light and this playfulness. I think that's what I really enjoy about the album, that it kind of, you put it on and you just like, it's like hands in the air, life's good.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. And with the album, you decided to offer it out for free as well. So it's a gift to the world, and anyone can just download it on your website. And you've kind of created a community around the world with it, where you spend some of your year just going to schools and going to different places and singing. And again, it's all just like, it's this kind of a global community that connects around this music and these ideas.
Yeah, I was thinking like, these are not my messages, so I can't charge for them. But we can be instruments, obviously, and in small ways. And so I wanted to offer it, and I know there's financial practicalities that we all have to deal with in order to kind of sustain in the practical world. So I really wanted to offer it from a pure space, but I also wanted to leave room for people to support. So I started a nonprofit. And that's kind of how it's just been cyclically working out. Like there's no agenda. It's just, I want to be of service to share this message wherever we can. And so people reach out through my website and invite me to come wherever they're parts of the world. And we just engage in a conversation really with the community and about these messages. And they're so, again, that's why they're not my messages. So it's like all of us sharing. So last night when I'm in Mumbai, in southern Mumbai with 101 kids, these students from all over India, they're leaders from all over India. When we're sharing these messages, I do share some of the songs and they also sing along, which is awesome. But then the dialogue is happening in between the songs. So if it's kindness, for example, if I'm singing the song Being Kind during this sharing, then 10, 15 minutes of it actually is just us sharing moments that have shifted us. And it's awesome because when we hear it from one another, it's such a different conversation than just social gathering or some like concert or whatever, where we're just kind of like, it's really anchoring us into the stories that are happening around us that we can't see and the shifts that are happening. And one student says something that I'm going to pick up and take with me into my life, and then another adult might say something, and so I think these Empty Hands gatherings have just been a blessing because it's really a collective sharing, and we're just using these songs as instruments or tools or an excuse to gather. And to me, there's nothing more powerful than that. And we've done it in prisons and refugee camps and schools, churches, homes, concert halls as well. I mean, it doesn't matter really, because it's whoever's hosting it comes from that space of wanting to plant the seeds of these values in each other's lives, and so it all naturally kind of works out.
And it brings back that importance of the sharing circles, of coming together in a circle and listening to each other, and that everyone in that circle, what each heart has to say is just as important as the next and the next, and that we can never imagine what we learn from those spaces.
Absolutely. I agree. I think I'm learning that more and more about the importance of listening when we're in these type of groups and circles. And actually, we're listening 90% of the time, if not more, if everyone's voice is being heard. So it's really powerful.
What are the lessons that you feel that you've learnt most from Gandhi's teachings, from Gandhiji's teachings, and from spending time here in India?
There's so many. To do my small part and not let my ego burden myself with having to do so much. But be committed to it with rigor and with passion. And sometimes that becomes very big, and that doesn't matter either. So just be committed to that process, I think, of the journey of two things: purifying my own mind and heart, and letting whatever that composition of mind, body, soul, heart be to offer to the world in whatever small ways. This inner practice of purifying the heart, for me, again, starts with this idea of like not creating a dichotomy and a judgment of external or internal. So that process in and of itself is so important, I think. The purifying of the mind and the heart. And I think I don't know, I feel like that's it. Then the instrument of who we are will be used in its best form. And that is a long journey, and it's a lifelong journey. So I feel like that's really all I'm taking from this experience, to keep working on myself and having faith that externally it's going to be used in the best possible way that I can.
And if one of our friends is listening and they're asking, but how do I purify my mind and heart?
Yeah, no, I mean that's why I'm saying it's a lifelong journey, because like if we're not using those words and saying, how do I become a kinder human being? How do I be a gentler human being? How do I become less judgmental of others? How do I serve with less attachment or selfishness involved? And then if I take those things in and of itself, each one of those becomes a practice that I got to implement on a daily basis. I got to change my habit patterns. So I know it's kind of lofty, but I'm just saying working backwards in the inner journey is all of these things and a commitment to all of them. And it might just be picking one of them and saying, this year I'm just going to focus on this. For me, meditation is an important tool to even get close to understanding what I'm talking about, because it gives me that chance to still my mind a little, if not observe the dirty mind or the moving mind or the unstill mind, and little by little harness it, get that energy, and then realize, wow, here's my weakness, here's what I want to work on. But it's a commitment to saying I do want to work on it. I don't care just about the external stuff that's happening, eating, breathing, playing, smiling, hugging, relationships. That's beautiful, but the inner part of it, I want to be able to direct the inner work. I don't want it to just be taken over by the external. So I know it's kind of like when we talk, I mean, this is a whole other hour conversation about how do we actually do the inner work.
Well, we'll do that. We'll get Gandhiji on Skype.
Yeah.
The three of us will do another episode.
Skype is, well, let's not do Skype, but let's do like maybe FaceTime audio or something, so that, because he doesn't like showing his face all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Shouldn't put that on him.
Yeah, we don't want to like get him all, because like then he doesn't like all that publicity.
Yeah.
Unless it's for a cause.
He's in retirement now.
Right there. Exactly. And then you go back to his quote, right? Be the change. That idea of ultimately it's just working on self-change for the better, and that has so many ripple effects.
Did he actually say that?
I don't think so.
Be the change you wish to see in the
I
world?
don't think so. I think he said something like that.
Yeah.
And then I think his grandson actually brought it together into those words. It was like a paragraph worth of saying the same thing, and then it was compressed into be the change you wish to see in the world. But yeah, good catch.
We like to keep it real. The future is beautiful.
Yeah, usually we just don't have time to talk about like the full paragraph and then Arun Gandhiji's translation of it.
Thank you, Nimo. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you, Amisha,
to spend this time with you.
For planting these seeds in our global community.
Absolutely, and we will share links to everything that you've mentioned.
Oh, cool.
On our blog, so everyone can find everything. And for your music, it's emptyhandsmusic.com?
Yeah, emptyhandsmusic.org.
.org. Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now for some of Nimo's music.
So this next song is one of my favorites because it was inspired by my favorite musician, Daniel Nahmad, and a close friend of mine. And the song is called Planting Seeds, and really about offering ourselves on this planet without expecting anything in return.
I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, nothing
It's like
more.
your whole life you've been training for this moment, and when the time comes you just disown it, meaning you just surrender, don't control it, not interested in the clay pots and mold it, or sitting next to the path trying to unfold it, or waiting for the fruits to fall down toward you. Let it go and now you're flowing, feeling quite gorgeous, so you take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, and now we're learning when we let it go it overflows with no credit to take, cause no credit is home. A higher power working deeper where the seeds are sowed, and when the seeds are true, then they're seeds of gold. But the real gold is joy when life starts to flow, and when it does, you just smile cause now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow.
When it grows, it grows.
Whatever dies will die.
And when it dies, it dies.
Whatever
Come on.
works will
If
work.
it works, it works.
Whatever flies will
Let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will fail.
fails, it
What's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
when it soars, it soars.
I am planting seeds. Whatever grows will grow.
Let it grow, let it
Whatever
grow.
dies will
If
die.
it dies, it dies.
Whatever works will
When it works, it works.
Whatever flies
Yeah,
will
let it fly, let it
Whatever
fly.
fails will
If
fail.
it fails, it fails.
To soar will soar.
Come on, let it soar.
I am
I'm planting seeds and nothing more.
This next track is called Ode to Women, and it's actually a very dear track to us because we did it in our native tongue, our mother's tongue, and English, but so important, I think, at least from, if I speak on behalf of SWAP, KB, and myself, that this idea of loving and respecting our sisters, our mothers, our women on this planet, in a time where we see so much challenge in that same space. And I don't know, we just feel like this was some message that we had to put out there, and hopefully, because hip hop is seen as a very masculine art form in a way, that we felt like this would be such a beautiful way to express this theme of love and respect and adoration and gratitude for the feminine spirit through the hip hop medium, but also in our own native tongues as well. So, ode to women.
વિચાર કરું છું બરાબર માન તમને કેવી રીતે આપવું અને આ નાનો છોકરો હવે મોટો થઈ ગયો પણ યાદ રાખીશ તમારા લીધે જ અહીંયા પહોંચી ગયો. A simple rhyme in these complicated times is hard to come by. To tell the truth, I'm kinda stunned by. You know, I used to think the soul could only take so much, but now I realize that it only takes your touch. સત્યને શક્તિ તમારી આંખોમાં જન્મેલા, કર્મના મોક્ષ તમારી દિલમાં રમેલા, પ્રેમ ને ધર્મ તમારી આગળ તો પગે લાગે, તમારી માટે સૂર્ય તો આખી રાત જાગે. Teach me how to go against the grain with grace. Can't you see? Humanity should plant seeds in the smile of your face, quietly without expectation, without the need for others' approval and affirmation. See, you laid the foundation since the beginning of time, and right now I only wish that I could press rewind and take back any pain I've ever caused you. Now I pause to think about life if I lost you, but enough of all that, it's time to celebrate, cause every moment that we live to you we dedicate, and truth be told, cause you can see it in my eyes, a genuine thank you, cause you're the women in our lives. Women, it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I would ever make it through. The beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are our women, it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I would ever make it through. The beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are our women.
You're like an aberration of my imagination. There's no exaggeration to describe my adoration for all the things that you bring to our lives. When I look in your eyes, I see the past and the future. From the mother to the wife, you the giver of life. And from the daughter to the sister, you the lifter of strife. You the Pati, the Auntie, the Shakti, the Shanti, Maharani. I'm so lucky just to have so many of you in my life, looking out for me with that smile sweeter than honey. And it's never been a moment I've had to doubt that you love me, even though I'm crazy and sometimes I don't have a clue. But as a man, there's certain things I just have to do, and I appreciate how even when you can't relate, how you always seem to take my word with trust and have faith. You're the picture of patience, the definition of love, and no matter how much we tell you, it could never be enough. We love you, and it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I could ever make it through. All the beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are our women, it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I could ever make it through. All the beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are
કેમ
our
આપણી
women.
છોકરી આપણી પાછળ ચાલે છે, કેમ આપણું ડાચુનું જેમ આ વાત તો સાચું હોય તો મને કે ત્યાં દેશમાં રડતા હતા. આપણી છોકરીનું પ્રેમ તો જોયા વગર ચોરનું જેમ આપણે લેતા હતા ને હવે time. Every time I close my eyes I dream of visions of beautiful queens that walk by my side. I hold your hand in this time, put you on the highest pedestal, like the point on the peak of the mountain, and never let it go. Mummy, તમે તો મારી શક્તિ છો, ભગવાન નહીં તો તમારી મારી ભક્તિ લો. I pray to God that you never run out of my life, cause I see too many ego men living adamant strife. You're the catalyst in times like these, I think twice. Ne ત્રીજી વખતનું જિંદગી મારી જિંદગી is your life, that's right. You're the testament, proof, and birth certificate, yes. You're the women in our lives, thanks for listening. Yeah, it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I would ever make it through. The beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are our women, it would be such a struggle without you. Couldn't imagine how I would ever make it through. The beauty that you bring to my life is so true, that's why I appreciate you. You are our women, 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 women.
Thank you for listening. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on the blog. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our community. If you loved this and would like to contribute to our Patreon campaign or join our online group to connect with other listeners, please visit www.thefutureisbeautiful.co and click on community. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes so we can grow. Here is to us, creating a beautiful future together.